being in this retired phase, when you think about what these shared goals are, if that is kind of the challenge now, is like there's so many options, how does the idea of pursuing something change with like, um in the first 10 years, it's like, well, we are having fun, we are building something together, but the goals are not long term, in the sense that like you're building to something, but the thing that you were building to was like a stable relationship, a stable family, uh being able to have a stable house, right? Like these things that are now checked, right? Like you did it. And now the next goal is like there's not really, it just feels much more open-ended. What How would you categorize that difference in the goal? Like what is the goal now, and how is that different than how the goal used to be? Goal isn't even really the right word, but that's the one I'm using.
I think our decisions now are based more on quality of life. Like, how are we going to spend our time at this particular place? Relationships that we have. How is how are we going to be able to incorporate as many of the current relationships and continue that, because those are really valuable to us. Make decisions that we can, family and friends can share with us. That's definitely part of it. Um, but it is, what am I going to do at a certain location? Is this a place that I can sink into and find, uh, I don't know, a way to spend my time that's fulfilling?
Mhm.
That's I'm I think I'm more in limbo about that right now than your dad is. Your dad's a hobbyist, if anything. He has all these different hobbies. I'm not as much of a hobbyist, and the things that I like to do um, require commitment generally. So I'm trying to figure that one out for myself. You know, so uh, I don't know. What do you think, Mike?
Well, I agree with you that I am the hobbyist, but I think we're both in a similar place in that the goals felt a lot more traditional, typical career focused, family focused, you know, achievement focused goals then, and now it's more the for me deeper questions, and that's I think when I'm trying these hobbies and I'm seeking, what is, what's a greater purpose? I think we kind of had a purpose. I didn't know what my purpose was back then, but I think in hindsight, my purpose, was the traditional kind of goals and objectives and
Or you lived
family.
as if your purpose was.
That's a good way to put it. Yes. And um, now it's kind of like, well, what are the deeper questions? Why are we here? Is it to commune with others solely, or is that a means to another end of a greater purpose? What is this spirituality? So that makes it hard, and I think through the hobbies allows an exploration and a searching and a testing of yourself, which is why I like doing those things. But it's also maybe a distraction to searching for the deeper truth. Why do these things? Where is fulfillment? Where does fulfillment come from? That
That's interesting. Do you think it's a distraction? Because in terms of hobbies, you're a sailor, you do bonsai, you're a scuba diver, you ride your bike avidly. Like there's all sorts of things that you really enjoy doing, and you're a student of them, which is really funny because I don't think you ever would have considered yourself a student, but you really are a student of things when you want to learn them, like that you're very dedicated to the like academic understanding and pursuit. And I do think that in the same way that like we were talking about Christianity as being almost like a frame that you can bounce off of. It's like you need some sort of benchmark in order to understand all of the other stuff. Otherwise, it is all just kind of limbo. And so I think in that similar way, like going to church was really helpful to be able to say, oh, these are the things we're talking about. I have something that I can push back against. And if I didn't have a framework to push against, who knows the framework I would have developed in a vacuum. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
hobbies can be similar, that it's like in having something to, like, I guess, pursue purpose through, it allows the like purposefulness to arise and you can take note of it. Because also, I mean, I don't know, would you say that if you're just like meditating, you feel the sense of fulfillment like when you're done meditating? Because that doesn't feel particularly fulfilling. Like when I'm
Right.
done, even if it's been like a really great meditation session, it's not like it ends and I'm like, wow, life is worth living, man.
Right.
It's
Right.
like I feel good, I feel centered, I feel aware, but I feel like it helps me do the other stuff. And it helps me better be aware of the other stuff. But it's
Sure.
like
I
there
think I
is
think
there is something else to it, I think, that yeah, I don't know.
that's
Sorry.
kind of
I'll
what
let
I
you.
meant. That's kind of what I meant. You said it a lot more eloquently than I did, and I do think that the hobbies are more of a framework or a structure allowing the exploration and of the other things. I don't think which specific hobby. I don't think any one particular hobby has value over another particular hobby. But I do think pursuing something that pushes you or challenges you to stretch and explore yourself, as well as others. I mean, all of these are most of what I do. Involves teamwork at times. There's individual work and teamwork involved in most of these. So there's
I've always said
there's a lot of
bonsai
different
is a team
dynamics.
sport.
Not fun.
Sorry, I'm
Yep.
being
No,
snarky.
and it moves so fast that I'm having a hard time keeping up with it too.
It's funny. But no, the point for sure stands that it's not that these other like community and hard work and like all these other values can come through in those things. Um as a self-proclaimed not hobbyist mom, I don't think that hobbies, while it's helpful to have that to kind of push up against, I think there are things that you do that with that maybe just aren't considered hobbies or maybe don't fit under the umbrella of like a hobby, but you're still very thoughtful in this way. How do you kind of conceive of this thing that we're talking about?
What, finding fulfillment in retirement? Is that what you're?
Yeah, but also like the difference between doing that like with having something like a hobby that is a structure that like you've built into your routine to like kind of check in with. I think that can be helpful to do this, but it's not necessary in order to find that fulfillment.
So
So
I
what
think
does that make sense?
yeah, I think I agree with your dad in doing things that stretch us. Like I was in the band for a couple of years. That was very. Who would have thought my 3 years of piano lessons in elementary school would have led to
And
being in
your
a
choir
band?
solos.
So there's that, and that was very much a stretch, right? It was performative. It was a performance. So, and I have that from my dance and teaching dance, but that was definitely stretching. So I do think, when I was doing CASA, that was something that stretches you in a different way. Emotional stress, you feel like you're
Yeah.
giving back in that regard. Whenever I was teaching dance, that definitely felt like I was providing more than just dance to those kids that I was, seeing every
Yeah.
week. Um,
Well, and I
but I
wouldn't
also go
I
ahead.
just I wouldn't consider like Casa. I might call the band a hobby, maybe, even though that feels almost like rude to say, but it's like casa and teaching dance, certainly not hobbies, right? But they
See,
still
that's
serve that function that we're kind of talking about.
right. So that's why like, I guess the hobbies that I have is the crafty things I do on occasion.
Well, and I was going to say
Um,
reading, you're such an avid reader, like in that I think similarly like engaging with media is another way that it's another touchstone to bounce off of too in considering these questions.
hmm hmm You know, it's I tell you one conflict I've had since retirement, and I know your dad probably has. I don't know. Tell me what you think about this, Mike. This just popped into my head. It's the dichotomy of we're getting older, the news and everything, the world today is just a mess, right? And part of me wants to unplug and I just at a certain point you don't want to hear about the bad stuff. It's just I don't want to hear it because it's depressing. It's
Yeah.
depressing, right? On the other hand, it is our responsibility to be part of the solution and not part of the problem, right? So we need to educate ourselves but it's definitely I'm having uh, conflicting feelings about my place in society and what I can do to make things better versus oh boy, it's 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 a lot.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing to bring up. And one thing I was actually thinking actually was like how this relates to like in terms of fulfillment and like impact on the world, like social, environmental and economic justice, like that is it feels at like the most pressing thing.